So welcome back to the Civil Service Fast Stream and Diversity Internship Program Situational Judgment Questionnaire webinar. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Orisi Komi and I'm going to be leading on the webinar today. I'm delighted to have you all here with me. And before we get started, I'm just going to go through what to expect from the webinar. And a number of things that we're going to cover today will include an understanding of the application stages and the civil service competency framework. So going through the competency framework in depth, so you understand what to expect. And whilst I'm on this point currently, you should all have received an email as well with the civil service competency framework and a link to the practice test, which we are going to use later on. So if I could suggest that you have that open on your laptop, computer, or whatever device that you're using in the meantime. And we'll go through understanding what the civil service are looking for in the situational judgment questionnaire. As also towards the end, we'll have the chance to have an SDIP intern, so a Summer Diversity Internship Program intern, who will be joining us to share their experiences and tips from completing being on the program this summer, as well as successfully completing the situational judgment test. So that's what to expect from today. And before I go any further, I want to explain the civil service, the competency framework. So the competency framework is absolutely crucial when it comes to completing any assessment process, right from the situational judgment test to an assessment center. Like every organization, the civil service will assess candidates based on its competencies. The civil service competency framework can be found online by typing in civil service competency framework on the internet browser, and you should be able to have this document with a detailed explanation of what the civil service competencies are. And the areas that you would want to focus on that are relevant to the Fast Stream program and Diversity Internship program is level 3. So why is the competency framework important, and what is it? So competencies are the skills, knowledge, and behaviors that lead to successful performance. The competency framework sets out how the civil service want people to behave and how they want them to behave and work. The framework is used for recruitment, performance management, and development discussions, and for decisions about progression. The reason why this document is important is because the civil service, the situational judgment test, every question has been set to measure against the civil service competencies. So by understanding the civil service competencies, it will give you a strong chance of being successful, because you would know exactly, when you read through the questions, you know exactly how to respond and how to address the scenarios and situations. So my suggestion would be to take the time before you start your test, my suggestion would be to practice to study through and read through the civil service competency framework to ensure that you are comfortable, to make sure that you understand it, and before you go on to continue or start your test. So what is the civil service looking for? So here are a list of the civil service competencies. As I mentioned earlier, every aspect of the assessment process, right from the situational judgment test to the assessment center, every scenarios, every assessment, every test were based against the civil service competencies, which are listed, as you can see on the screen. So you all should have received a copy of the competency framework in an email that I sent earlier. However, I'm just going to go through the competencies, go through a brief overview of the several competencies that the civil service focus on. So about this framework, the civil service competency framework supports the civil service performance plan and performance management system. The framework sets up how, as I mentioned earlier, want people to behave in the civil service, and it also focuses on the civil service core values, which are honesty, integrity, impartiality, and objectivity. These 4 values are at the heart of the civil service, and every civil servant are expected to work, to demonstrate these values due to the nature of the work that civil servants do, because they serve the general public. So it's crucial that they demonstrate honesty, integrity, impartiality, and objectivity. So as a potential civil servant, it's vital for you to, when responding to the questions, to base your answers on facts and not based on your own opinion or how you think they should be addressed. The civil service expects every civil servant or applicants to address questions based on how they expect civil servants to behave. And one of them is seeing the bigger picture. Seeing the bigger picture is about having an in-depth understanding and knowledge of how your role fits with and supports the wider organizational objectives and the wider public needs and the national interest. With the next being changing and improving. So with this, it's about looking at people who are able to take initiative and are innovative and seek out opportunities to create effective change. And for this, it's about learning what has worked well and what has not worked well, and being open to change and improvement and work in a smarter way and using taxpayers' money in the most efficient way to deliver the best results. Followed by that is making effective decisions. This is crucial, particularly for the situational judgment test. If not all of the questions, they're set based on assessing your ability to make effective decisions. And this assesses you based on your ability to use sound judgment, evidence, and knowledge to arrive at an accurate, expert, professional decisions and advice. So with this, as I mentioned earlier, every aspect of a civil servant is about using, accurate information to ensure that they come to make an informed decision, and to ensure that information is handled securely and with care. And for leaders within the civil service, it's about reaching evidence-based strategies, evaluating options, impacts, risk, and solutions, and creating a security culture around the handling of information. And moving on to the next aspect of the competencies, so it's engaging people. So with this, it looks at 3 key areas: leading and communicating, collaborating and partnering, and building capability for all. At the leading and communicating stage, it's about showing pride and passion for public service and communicating purpose and direction with clarity, integrity, and enthusiasm. It's about championing the work of the civil service and championing the work to external stakeholders, from the public to other organizations or clients or people that you come across during your role within the civil service. And it's also supporting principles of fairness and opportunity for all. And then there's collaborating and partnering. So with this, it's about being a team player. It's your ability to be able to work in a team. I'm sure you'll appreciate that every organization, you'll be working with people from different backgrounds that you may not be used to or have interacted with in your previous life. And so with this, it's important that you are able to demonstrate your ability to work collaboratively with people from different walks of life. And then there's building capability for all. So it's having a strong focus on continuous learning for yourself and others and for the organization. So it's looking at your ability to be able to open to learning, about keeping your own knowledge and skill set current and evolving. So one of the key things that the civil service are focusing on at the moment is digital. So it's looking at how to make the civil service more modern and current and more adapting to the changing world of digital technology. That is another area and aspect that the civil service also will be, There's another aspect that they would be assessing candidates on. And finally, it's delivering results. So this breaks into managing a quality service, delivering at pace, achieving commercial outcomes, and delivering value for money. So by managing a quality service, this is looking at your ability to, about valuing and modeling professional excellence and expertise to deliver service objectives, taking into account of diverse customer needs and requirements. So as a civil servant, you're working with, you're managing the needs of people from all across the country, which also has an impact globally. So it's about ensuring that, you are delivering a quality service and modeling professional excellence and expertise to deliver service objectives. And then we move on to managing delivering at pace. So with delivering at pace is ensuring that you're focusing on delivering your objectives based on time, and also with energy, and taking responsibility and accountability for quality outcomes. Again, what tends to happen within the civil service is a high pressure, high paced environment with so many changes happening on a daily basis. For example, one of the current things that's been dealt with is Brexit. So this is why, so when assessing candidates, the civil service look for people who are able to demonstrate their ability to deliver at pace, but not just delivering at pace, but also doing so, making sure that they are delivering a quality service in the process. And finally, is looking at achieving commercial outcomes and delivering value for money. So with this, focus is on your ability to use money in an efficient and effective manner, and using the taxpayers' money in a economically, and delivering when delivering public services. It's also seeking out and implementing solutions which achieve the best mix of quality and effectiveness for the least outlay. So basically getting the most out of resources that are available, and then achieving commercial outcomes. Again, this is looking at your ability to maintain. It's about maintaining an economic long-term focus in all activities. So when creating something now, for example, if you're asked to set up a policy to create a public playground, for example, is looking at what other purpose could that playground serve? Could it be used to run outdoor classes? Could it be used to run, fitness, outdoor fitness, health and fitness exercise, for example? So it's about looking at how you can, expand, the purpose of whatever you're delivering on, so that it can have not just a short-term impact, but looking into the long-term gain as well. So that's all the areas. So the competency framework and what the civil service is looking for. So I'm going to quickly go through the situational judgment questionnaire and what to expect. So with this is about, for those of you who are not familiar with a situational judgment test, what it does is a series of hypothetical questions which ask you to decide on the best course of action based on the scenarios that you've been set. So you're given a number of options, given a question and a number of answers, and you're asked to choose what is the most effective or least effective outcome based on the option that's been given. We'll get the chance to practice shortly. So what you want to bear in mind when completing this is to focus on the questions, understand what you're being asked, and looking through the question, also asking yourself, okay, what is the most effective answer based on the question that I've been set, and the least effective outcome based on the question that I've been asked. Within the civil service, the expectation is you get 1 mark for getting the question correctly, and half a mark if you choose one that is effective, but not the least effective or the most effective. So the aim, you want to aim to get up to around about 80 to 85% for this test. What will be assessed in this SJT is decision making and other civil service competency areas. And the tips are to practice questions on the FastStream website, which you'll get a chance to do shortly, and carefully read the given scenarios and answer options, and consider what would be the best response, and use the civil service competencies as criteria for guiding your response. Most people tend to respond to the questions based on how they think they should do it, or how they think that how it makes sense to them. And this is where they fail. And this is why I mentioned earlier, so it's important that for you to understand the competencies and respond to the questions based on your understanding of the competency, because when responding to the question, you are almost acting as a civil servant. So this is why it's important to understand what they are. So you have up to 5 days to complete the test. However, from when you start your application, even if you start before the deadline, so before 12 p.m. the 25th of October, you have up to 5 days to complete it. However, it's suggested that you to spare about 30 minutes from when you start the test to complete it at any given seating from when you start it. So the behavioral test, again, this asks you to rate yourself against the civil service competencies. And again, this assesses on all civil service competencies areas. And with this, it's about thinking about your own personal qualities in relation to the competency areas. So this asks you questions on what are the best, what the, almost like a true, not true or false, but something around looking at your behavior against the civil service competencies. And with this, about the advice is to respond honestly in terms of your preferred style of working and when you're at your best. And again, this is on time, but don't spend too long on the question. You have about 30 minutes to complete it from when you start. With this, there is no practice question because you can't practice your behavior. And this is why you can only respond, take this on as a live test. So again, reminder about the deadline for the Early Diversity Internship Program. The deadline isn't until the 15th of November, so you should have plenty of time if you are a first year applying to the Early Diversity Internship Program. However, for the SDIP and Fast Stream, the deadline is next Thursday at 12 p.m. So that's all we have to go through for now. And we're not going to get the chance to practice the test. We're going to spend, what I'd say is to, maybe if you have any questions in the meantime, just to spend the next 2 minutes just to go for any question before we start the test at 4:30. So if you have any questions, I just suggest that you use the Q&A tab to ask your question. And if if there's anything you want to add after today's webinar, you can reach us on campus at elevationnetworks.org. And also you can go on our website or visit faststream.gov.uk website on how to find out more about the programs and how to apply. So I was going to spend the next 2 minutes just to go through any questions that you may have before we get started with the test. Can I suggest that you use the Q&A tab for any questions, please? Thank you. Can I suggest that you all use the Q&A button if you can see it on your screen to ask questions, please? Thank you. So question is, the deadline is this Thursday. Yes, the deadline is this Thursday, 12 p.m., Thursday, the 25th of October, 2018. So someone's asked, what are the most frequent mistakes people do in the SJT? One of the most frequent mistakes is people fail to read the civil service competency framework. And unfortunately, when in most cases, they tend to be unsuccessful. And people who are successful always refer that they practice, and read through the competencies before starting the test. Again, can I just make a request that if you're asking a question, there is a Q&A tab on your screen. It should be on your screen. Can I ask that you please use that to ask all your questions? There's a question that says, what are the qualities of the civil service workers? Again, there are 10 competency areas. However, the civil service qualities that they look for, the values are people who are honest, integrity, impartiality, and objectivity. All 10 competencies reflect the qualities of a quality of an effective civil servant. So my suggestion would be to look through all the competencies, all 10 of them, read them, understand them, and that will give you an insight into what an effective civil servant or a qualified civil servant worker is and what they're looking for and expecting. So hope that's gone through some of the questions. Now we'll get a chance to do some questions after the test. So what we're now going to do is to spend the next few minutes to practice the test. So you all should have received an email from me. What I'd ask is for you to follow the instructions on how to access the link, the practice link to the situational judgment test on the civil service website. Is there anyone who is having any difficulty accessing the link or have not found the link? Can you just let me know if you're having any difficulty finding the link or are not able to access it on your email? So am I right in thinking that everyone have the link open on the screen? If I just get you to type a yes, just to confirm that for me, please, that would be much appreciated. Did you all receive an email that was sent today? It was sent the email was sent earlier today. So guys, just to let you know, we now have Firmisk, who is going to be the SDIP intern, sharing her thoughts. But what we'll do, Firmisk will join us properly during the Q&A session after practicing the tests. Okay, in the email, there was an instruction on how to access the link. So if you're having any difficulty accessing the link from your email, I would suggest to follow the instruction that was listed in the email. And the instruction says copy and paste fast stream 2018 hyphen the online test. If you copy and paste that onto your browser, you should be able, you'll be taken to the link that will bring you to the test. So what I would suggest is you follow the instruction in your email, which says copy and paste fast stream 2018, the online test, and copy and paste it onto your browser, and it will take you onto a blog link where you can find the test, and the link to click on is practice questions for the situational judgment questionnaire. So I'm going to give you guys the next 2 minutes or so, just a minute or so, just quickly to do that before we get started, for just conscious of time. You're welcome. In future, I would also just want to highlight that it's important that you go through, look through your email, because we try our best to go through to provide as much information as possible ahead of the webinar. So my suggestion would be to get into the habit of looking through your emails. Again, this is going to be very crucial, especially for those of you doing the fast stream program, particularly for the e-tray exercise, because that looks at electronic trade, so looking at emails. So it's important that you get into the habit of looking through your emails in the meantime, because that's going to be key, particularly for the e-tray exercise. So is there anyone that has yet to find the link, or that's just go through that quickly before we get started? Is there anyone else still having difficulty accessing the link? If not, safe to say that we're going to get started now. So the time now is 4:34. So I'll give you between now and 4:45, or you need about, I say about 10 minutes, yeah, 4:45 to complete the test. And then we'll go through the questions after that and go through some of your answers, and also get a chance to engage with Firmisk, who will be joining us for the Q&A session in about 15 minutes. So if I would ask you to start your test and I'll come back again, I'll join you back again at 1:45, so at 4:45. Thank you. Okay, welcome back from completing your test. So we're gonna get some feedback from you guys how you found the process. How was that for you? How was it? Who would like to share how they found the situational judgment test? Just feel free to share your thoughts and comments and experience of the test. So how did you find it? Who would like to share? Who would like to go first? Usually people say they find it confusing, they find it difficult. You say it doesn't make any sense. So I'm really keen to I'm keen to hear how you all found it. Okay, we have the first share. Some of the questions were close, yes, got most of them wrong. Okay, it was not straightforward. Yeah, yeah, no, I can get that. What else? How did everyone else find it? I mean, often, when especially the part about some of the questions, some of the answers were close. Yes, that's what, because what you find that is it's very tricky. Hence, the clue is in the name in terms of what's most effective and least effective, meaning that they're all effective, possibly effective course of actions, but one of them is most effective and one of them is less effective, and one of them is completely not effective at all. So again, that's the one that you want to avoid choosing. So what we'll do, just to go through, I'm going to go through one of the questions before we bring on Firmis, because someone said they scored 3.5 over 5. That's not bad. That's good going. Again, it's okay if you got most of them wrong or if you didn't get any right at all. This is why, we're practicing, going through a practice session now. So it's absolutely fine. The whole point is actually just to understand, to prepare yourself now and do as much practice as possible so you feel comfortable before starting the real test. So it's absolutely fine. And so let's go through the first question. So I'm just gonna have the first question on my screen. Just bear with me. So going through question 1, who chose C as their most effective? Okay, and who chose A as their least effective? So who chose C as most effective and A as least effective? And is there anyone that chose a different answer as the most effective or a different answer as the least effective? Is that we're able to go through why C and A? Or is there anyone who isn't sure why C is the most effective and why A is the least effective? Is there anyone who isn't sure why those are the answers? And I'll be able to go through. Okay, Gareth said he's not sure. Excellent. Okay, quite a few people say there's 2% they're not sure why C is the most effective and A is the least effective. Okay, hopefully when I go through that, I'll be able to give you a bit more clarity as to why those are the correct answers. Again, it's absolutely fine if you're not sure. So let's go through the questions. So the question reads, bear with me. The question is, so I'm just having a technical difficulty today. The question is, your line manager has asked you to provide a summary of a 20-page European Commission policy document. She needs this to prepare for an important meeting that is happening in the near future and does not have time to read the whole report. However, the document is not well written and is presented in an order that you feel is not very logical, although it has been agreed at senior level. What should you do? The options are: rewrite the document before creating the summary so that it is easier to understand if others pick it up in the future. B is write the summary of the document, but change the order so that it follows an easier format for your line manager to follow. C, create the summary in the existing order, ensuring it is clearly written. there was probably a reason for why it was presented in this way. And D, arrange a meeting with your line manager to raise concerns about the structure of the document before starting the work. Again, reading through that, there are pretty much all of them at bar one are effective. Steps that you can take. For example, A is rewrite the document. So like B, for example, is write the summary of the document, but starting from A, my apologies. Rewrite the document before creating the summary so that it's easy to understand if others pick it up after in the future. Again, that makes sense. People would say, actually, that makes a lot of sense. It sounds logical to take that approach. However, by looking for the option, you see that it goes against what was actually being asked. So things to pick up in the question is the line manager is an important document. It's a policy document. And they've asked you that the task was to prepare a summary of a 20-page. It hasn't asked you to rewrite the document, whereas option A the suggestion for option A is to rewrite the document before creating the summary, which goes against what you've been asked to do, which is to provide a summary. I mean, it's been written already. You don't know why it's been written that way. You've just been tasked to write a summary. So taking option A would go against what has been set in the first place. So that is not effective. So option B is write the summary, again, but change the order so that it follows an easier format for your line manager to follow. Again, it makes sense. However, although it says write a summary, which is following the order has been set, but there's a clue that says the document has been agreed at a senior level. Although it hasn't been well written or presented in the order that you feel is not very logical, it has been written that it's been agreed at a senior level. You do not know why it's been written in that way. So what you want to avoid is to actually change the document or to change the order, because someone who's written in that way, they understand why they've written it that way. And the last thing you want to do is to change it. And then if they have to do a presentation, it messes up the flow and it would not look good on their behalf. It just disrupts the whole purpose of the document in the first place. So whereas option C is create the summary in the existing order, ensuring it is clearly written, there was probably a reason for why it was presented in this way. So now you can see why this option is the most effective. And D is also effective. By arranging a meeting, raising concerns about the structure of the document may give you a chance to rewrite the document before starting the work. Makes sense. However, it's not the most effective because it might be time consuming, but to actually have a meeting with your manager, your line manager may not have the time to actually have a meeting with you. So these are things you want to bear in mind. So now you can see, I hope you can now see why C is the most effective and why A is the least effective, because it's literally rewriting the document before you do the summary, which goes against what you've been asked in the first place. So I hope that gives a bit of clarity as to how or why C is the most effective and A is the least effective, and gives you an understanding actually how to approach the questions from the situational judgment test questions. Like if you look at this, it's about looking at your ability to make effective decision based on evidence, based on what you've been set. So this shows you what's been assessed in this question in particular. So I hope that gives a bit of clarity and how to answer the question. So just let me know if that's a yes or a no. If it's still not clear, I'm going to go through more questions with you. Well, in the meantime, I would like to use this opportunity to welcome Firmis. So Firmis, she did a summer diversity internship program this summer, and went to successfully complete the program, and also was awarded a fast pass, which means if she goes on to apply for the fast track program, she'll go straight through to the assessment center. So Firmis has kindly offered to give us her time to share her experiences from being on the summer diversity internship program earlier this year, as well as give some of her top tips from the situation on completing the situational judgment test. I'm just going to use this chance to get Firmis to do a quick introduction about herself and just to share her journey so far. And then we get a chance to ask her, you guys get a chance to ask some questions afterwards. Firmis, over to you. Just going to wait for Firmis to join us.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So I don't know how to. I have clicked on the FaceTime bit, but it doesn't let me add it. So it might just have to be audio. Sorry about that, guys.
No worries.
So I am Firmis, and I applied to the SDIT, I think in 2017. So I think it was still summer holiday from university when I applied. I got it through an email from my university, and I just followed on. And the website is pretty good at telling you what it's all about and how to apply. But once university started, I went to my careers team. We have academic support tutors at our university, and told them about it and seek their support to help me apply and be the most competitive that I can be in getting into the SDIP and even civil service.
Fantastic.
And right now I'm on placement in Parliament. It's part of my degree. It's a university-led program, but you have to apply to it. For me, it's optional, but I wanted to get more experience working in the politics side of things as well.
So just to touch on your role quickly, Femi. So you say you're currently working in Parliament. So what is that you're doing exactly?
So I work at an MP's office as a political assistant. So for the first 2 weeks, I was literally running the office by myself. So that is attending meetings with my MP, replying to correspondence through email, diary management. Also, from the second week, I had to organize a reception for some of the all parliamentary politics groups, all parliamentary party groups that my MP is involved with. So that was event management to the extreme.
Fantastic. So I just want to touch upon your experience on when you did the Summer Diversity Internship Program. What was that like? What was your experience? So before you went into the civil service, what was your perception of the civil service, and what was then after you completed the program, did your perception change about the civil service?
So I have studied the civil service a little bit from the politics side of things, and I thought that they were close to ministers. There was a politician there all the time, and you know, as you guys watched the thick of it, that's what I thought the relationship was like. But the department I got into is the only non-ministerial department, which is HMRC, and I didn't see a minister the whole time I was there. Or any politicians for that matter. And also, I thought HMRC was all about tax. I mean, that's what I Googled and that's what I got. But HMRC does more than that. I was in the transformation project, which is building new offices and moving HMRC from different regional sites to regional hubs.
Fantastic. And so with so when you looking back to when you completed the situational judgment test last year, what would you say helped you to be successful, and what would be your top tips to people completing the program this year?
So that situational judgment test was I think it was the second time that I've done it. I did one at college for EY, but I didn't recollect it at the time, so I didn't know what it was. And I panicked, and I was like, how can I study for this? You know, like any other test. Went to my careers team, and they were like, you can't really study for it, but there are some free practice tests available. The SDIP program actually gives you a practice test, but that's a very short version. And if you consult your careers team from university, if you still got contact with them, or just Google it, free online sites, you can buy some. But there are free ones available that I use myself. So I practiced through that. But one big thing that you can, so pretty much all the tests that civil service do that they use is the competencies. I think they've changed names to behavioral traits, but if you know what they're looking for, you can answer the questions according to those codes. So yeah, like value for money, you can judge that. They do give you like a summarized version of the competencies to study from, but what I did, I Googled the big one that the whole of civil service use, and that goes extensively into what they mean by those competencies and those codes. And if you have a good understanding of that, you can actually get through the situational judgment test. because you understand what they're looking for and you will behave in the way that they want you to be reacting.
And
you know what I mean?
With that said, how important would you say then the competencies are to passing the situational judgment test?
So it is multiple choice kind of thing, but I think it's very important. It's important in the sense that even if you don't do any other practice and you only do the one that the STIP gives you, if you have understood the competencies, you will be able to pass it. I mean, I have no doubt if you studied them and you understand the competencies and what they were about, you will react to those situations in the way that they kind of want you to, instead of what you would usually do.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Firmisk. So just to highlight some of the things that Firmisk just especially the last things you just mentioned there, that the temptation is most people tend to, want to approach the questions based on how they think it should be approached. And this is where, as I mentioned earlier, that people go wrong, because every organization, when they test you, they're testing it against their competencies. So that, it's important to refrain from trying to approach it based on how you think it should be approached, but rather approach it how a civil servant would approach it. And how to know how a civil servant would approach it is by understanding the competencies. And with that said, I'm just going to open the floor up to you guys if you have any questions for Firmisk. Use time to ask as many questions as possible. There's no such thing as a silly question. So whatever you want to ask, whatever you want to get across, whatever you want to find out, I just want to encourage you to use this time to do so. So let's give about, you have to spend about 5 minutes, Firmisk?
No, it's fine. It's refreshing to be on the other side. I'm usually the one who's literally asking all the questions.
Yeah. So guys, we're going to just, let's use the next 5 minutes to go through as many questions as possible for Firmisk. And so over to you guys. Who would like to ask questions? Has anyone got any questions they would like to ask?
I can't see the questions, Oris.
I'll read them out for you. I'll read them out.
Okay.
So you guys, you can ask your questions and I'll be able to read them out for Firmisk to hear them. Any questions? Would anyone like to ask any questions? Still waiting for, so I'm just gonna have a few questions that are just more generic questions I'm going to answer in the meantime. So one of them is there any age limit? No, there isn't any age limit for any of the civil service program. However, for summer diversity and the early diversity internship program, for summer diversity, you must be a second year student or in your third year in order to be eligible to apply, but there is no age limit to that. And for early diversity internship program, you must be in your first year of university. Again, there is no age limit to apply to the early diversity internship program. And so I hope that answers that question. And when will we get access to the full situational judgment test, which is part of the application process? Again, you get the test once you've completed your application registration form. You will be sent instructions on how to complete the test. And there's a question that says, when will we get access to the full? I think I've just answered that question just now. So guys, has anyone got any questions for Firmisk before she shoots off? If you have any questions, I was highly encouraged. I use this time now to get your questions across. It doesn't look like anyone has got any question. Or maybe they do. Bear with me. So how long did you spend preparing is the question for you, Firmisk. Firmisk, can you hear me? Firmisk, can you hear me? Okay, we're having a bit of a technical difficulty here, guys. I'm just going to just make sure that Firmisk can hear me properly. Just bear with me. Thomas, can you hear me? Oh, I think we might have lost Fermix, guys. Apologies. Just bear with me. Fermix, can you hear me? Fermix? Guys, so we're having a bit of a technical difficulty here. It doesn't. Fermix can hear me. Fermix, can you hear me? Hello? No? Can anyone hear me? If you can't hear me, can you let me know if you can or cannot? If you can hear me, can you just type a yes for me, please? This is to everyone. Can you just type a if you can all hear me? Okay. Okay, there's someone someone said they can't hear me, but most of you can all. I don't understand. We're having a bit of a difficulty with Fermix. You can't hear me, unfortunately. No, I can't hear you, Fermix. Sorry about any inconvenience, guys. I'm just trying to get this sorted. Okay. I think this is what might have happened. Thank you, Gary. I think I might have muted Fermix by accident. No, I haven't. She hasn't been muted. No. Can you hear me now? No, I still can't hear. Can you hear me?
Now?
Yes, perfect.
That's good.
I
can
don't
see
know.
the questions now.
Okay, excellent. So the question is, how long did you, sorry, guys, apologies for the slight technical difficulty there. And we're just going to go through the questions now. So the question was, how long did you spend preparing for the situational judgment test?
So I'm someone who when they're applying to something, I don't really time how much I spend on it. I just do as much as I can to actually prepare. But I would say from where I began, the situational judgment test, I felt was a big hurdle for me, which it turned out it isn't if you know your competencies. So I did spend time studying those competencies quite rigorously, and also getting my hands on any practice test that I can get. So it doesn't actually have to be the same as the civil service one, just know the layout of it and how it's judged.
Fantastic.
And it depends on you. Like if you can read really fast, you can go through the document. It's but I recommend reading it.
And what would you say, can you see the question on the top tips as well? So what are your top tips for preparing for the E-Tray? I mean, at this stage, you can probably share more on the interview stage, i.e. the telephone interview. For the E-Tray, you did not do the E-Tray exercise, did you?
No, SDPs don't do the E-Tray.
So E-Tray for people applying to the fast stream, again, is very similar approach. It's by practicing, reading through the competency framework, and that's
also create folders, create files for different types of emails, and prioritize always.
Yeah.
This is what I learned from my job now. It feels like an E-Tray task every day.
And now you can see that's why that's important, because your day-to-day job would actually be involved around organizing documents, emails, papers, and so on and so forth.
Yes, one thing you have to bear in mind is that there is a lot of work, and if you don't prioritize, you don't get many things done. And sometimes you can get through everything, but if you prioritize, you do it in the time that they should be done. So that's why you need to be organized, and that's why the E-tray is quite important test for people.
And what would you say your top tips are for the interview? So when you did your telephone interview, what would you say your top tips were?
I was talking about this today. I went to FCO to meet one of my fellow interns. By the way, guys, contacts for life if you get into it. So I actually had about 5 mock interviews, 2 from the careers team from university, 1 from my mentor, which is not related to my academic or SDIP, and then 1 from my academic support tutor at university, and also 1 from Elevation Networks the morning before. So when it came to the actual interview, I just knew it like the back of my hand, if you know what I mean. But it was still not that practiced, and I somehow managed to make the interviewer laugh. They are just fast streamers, I think. They're not like senior people, so don't be scared. Most of them are young when they interview you. It's a nice chat.
So your top tip for that would be to practice, do as much mock practice as possible.
Yeah, and just have the STAR model in mind, so you know how to present your experience. Some people have really valuable stories to tell about their experience and how they've demonstrated those competencies, but when they don't present it in the right way, they're missing out on really showing how that has helped through what they were doing. So the STAR model, so that is situation, task, action, and then result.
Fantastic. So guys, we've got about another 2 minutes or so just to ask you time to ask any questions you may have before Firmisk.
Yeah, I sadly have to go.
So do you have any final questions for Firmisk before she leaves? I don't think so.
All right, lovely to have you guys on this. Thank you, Oris, for this opportunity, and good luck, guys. I mean, it feels like a long time, but it is worth it. It's great fun and great experience.
Fantastic. Thanks for your time, Firmisk, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye for now. Okay, welcome back, guys. So I hope that was useful. I hope they gave you a bit of an insight from someone who's been through the Summer Diversity Internship Program. And just going to use the next few minutes to go through the questions. I mean, we can use the next few minutes to go through some more questions if you'd like me to. So would anyone like me to go through any more questions? Just let me know, give me a yes or a no. Or if you have any general questions that you'd like to ask before we round up. Happy to go through 1 or 2 more questions. Okay, someone said they would like to go through questions, please. Okay. Okay, so let's go through a few more questions. So question. So, oh no, I've just had, bear with me guys, I've just had issues accessing the link. Just bear with me. Okay, so question 2. The question was, you are responsible for organizing and coordinating regular meetings of a cross-governmental group working on public health. Unfortunately, while director level attendance is requested, many directors have started to delegate their attendance, and you are concerned that the group is losing momentum and influence, and what should you do? So the answer to question 2, the most effective is B and the least effective is D. Is there anyone who isn't sure as to why those are the correct answers? So I can go through them in more detail. Is there anyone who's not sure as to why B is the most effective and D is the least effective? Or would anyone like to share what answers they chose? So why B instead of A? So the reason why B is the most effective instead of A, so going through the, so if you look at the options, so option B is, where possible, speak to each of the directors prior to the meeting to discuss the issues of importance to them on the agenda so they see the benefit of attending. So going back to the question, it says you are responsible for organizing and coordinating the regular meetings of a cross-government group working on public health. Unfortunately, while director level attendance is requested, so meaning they've been requested to be there, many directors have started delegating their attendance and you're concerned the group is losing momentum. So B says that, where possible, speak to each directors, meaning it addresses the main concerns as to them dropping off or delegating their attendance to other people. So by speaking to them, you have the chance of, tell them to understand the importance of the meeting, which may convince them or help them to see why they should be there instead of delegating their attendance to other people, and for them to see and understand the benefit of actually them being there and why they're required. Whereas if you compare it to A says email each of the directors, encouraging them to add their own items of interest to the agenda so they see the benefit. So I'm going to focus on that slightly. So again, going back to making an effective decision. If you compare speaking with someone in comparison to emailing someone, you would get a much quicker answer if you ring and speak to someone compared to email. Because with email, you cannot control when they will see the email, when they will respond to the email, and they probably won't even, there's a likelihood that they may not actually go through the email because they have other urgent or pressing emails to go through. So they may just leave that on the back burner, and which may delay or impact on you making a decision as to who would be at the meeting. Whereas if you pick up the phone and ring up every director or speak to each of the director, you have a chance of not only get an answer or response there and then, but you'll be able to speak to them, explain to them the benefit of the meeting so that they see why they should be there, and you're able to leave with a clear answer, yes or no. And most likely, having the likelihood of actually convincing them to be there. So can you see why B would be the most effective compared to A? Okay, we have a yes, but let's hear it. Is it time efficient? So would you say, what would you say is more time efficient? I see what you mean. So you probably think it would probably take about half an hour to ring up, to send an email to everyone, which is understandable compared to, the time you would spend, say it might take you 2 hours to ring people. However, going back to the question, the key things to notice in the questions are director level attendance is requested, and you're concerned because they are delegating their attendance to other people. So if you email, say, let me say in this case, you're a director and you need to be at this meeting. If I send you an email, or if you send me an email, let's reverse. So you are the person organizing the meeting. I'm the director. You've sent me an email. The likelihood of me responding to that email might, there's no guarantee as to when I'll respond to you because I might be busy doing other things, which happens on a day-to-day basis. I may have a backlog of emails to go through, and to me, that's not a priority. I might just leave it. So again, it doesn't allow you to be able to come to know or have a decision or before ahead of the meeting. So it leaves you in the same place of not knowing if I'm going to be there or not. Whereas if you spend that 2 hours ringing everyone, you get the chance to explain to them the importance of the benefit of attending the meeting, and you're able to get an answer from them there and then. So although you're spending more time in that short term to get to ring up everyone, but the impact of receiving an answer straight away is much more vital and crucial compared to email, which may take days or weeks for people to actually respond to an email. And you may end up having to chase people again, which may, which really puts you in a very challenging situation. So this is why making a call is more effective than sending an email based on the scenario that you've been set in this question. So I hope that gives a bit more clarity as to why, Gary, I hope that gives a bit more clarity as to why B is the most effective and A is, although it's effective, but it's not the most effective. Remember I said earlier, you can have an option as effective, but it isn't the most effective. So what you want to do is to look at the one that's most effective, that's more in line to the question, that actually addresses the question and takes the question into consideration. What would you say the competency value being tested on this is? So for question 2, it's definitely effective decision making. So again, this is looking at your ability to make effective decision. So you're given that you have four options that you can take. So which one would you say is the most effective option? You are welcome. So I hope that was helpful. So Christian said it's not because invariably you're answering 10 questions in 5. I'm not sure I get what you mean, Christian. I think I get what you mean. Are you saying, were you explaining as to why using the phone option, in essence, is you're getting all your answers straight away? Oh, I think I get what you mean. Okay, so there are 10 questions. So you mean with the 5 questions, are you answering 10? If I understand what you mean correctly, Christian, so there are, in this practice question, you have 5 questions and you're given 10 answers. So 5 of those are the most effective option and 5 are the least effective option. Is that what you mean? I'm just trying to be sure that I understand your question correctly. Fab. And is there anyone still not sure? So is anyone still not sure? So I'm going to go through question 3, 4, and 5. So the answers to question 3, the most effective is A and the least effective is C. And the most effective is for number 4 is C and the least effective is B. And the most effective for number 5 is B and the least effective is C. Is there anyone still not sure as to why those are the correct answers and would like to go through them in more detail? Please let me know if you're still not sure and would like to go through any of the question 3, 4, and 5 in more detail. Thank you. If not, I guess we can bring today's session to a close. However, before doing so, could I ask you all to please kindly complete the survey, which you should be able to see on your screen. If I could ask you to spend the next sort of a minute or two, it's only 2 questions, just to quickly go through, share your feedback on the webinar, and that would be really useful for us. Thank you. Thank you for completing the survey. Okay, on that note, I'm happy to still spend the next 2 minutes to answer, or the next 5 minutes to answer any final questions you may have, or go through any of provide further clarity to any of the answers to questions 3, 4, and 5 before I leave. So I'm going to be here for the next 2-3 minutes or so. Feel free to have to go for any final questions before heading off. So would anyone like to ask any final questions, or would like me to explain any of the points, provide further clarity on any of the questions or any of the answers? So I have one question. Oh, no question, thanks. Okay, you're welcome, Gary. So someone's asked, where can we find, is there anywhere you can find other practice questions? There is a website called assessmentday.co.uk. So if you type it on Google or any of the internet browser, type in Assessment Day, they have access to free situational judgment test practice questions. So that's another way where you can find links to practice questions. Again, in addition to that, as Firmix said, the most important thing is to, what I would actually suggest, what I would recommend, I strongly recommend, is to focus more on studying the civil service competency framework document. Because as Firmix mentioned earlier, even if you don't get a chance to practice, so long as you understand the competencies, the civil service competencies, you understand what they're looking for, understand what it's asking of you, you'll be able to make a good judgment so be able to judge the situational judgment test effectively. So my suggestion would be to spend more time studying the competence, the civil service competencies, and by all means practice. But to me, that would be the most important thing in itself. Hope that answers your question, Gary. And any final question? You're welcome. On that note, I'm now going to call it a day. I hope you have found today's webinar effective. I hope you found it useful, and I hope is to answer some of the questions at the beginning. So from the beginning, some of you said you'd like to, learn how to master the situational judgment test. And, I know, Gary, you mentioned earlier that, if you're still here, Gary, you mentioned that, someone who applied last year said it was tough and they were not successful. I hope that you now, from today, I hope you feel a bit more, confident or have a good understanding of actually how to master the situation judgment test. And to me, the secret to mastering the situation judgment test is to study the competency framework. So that's the key, that's the master key to really unlocking the situation judgment test. If you do that, you stand a good chance of being successful. And Jeffrey said, have an overview of the whole testing process. And I hope that, Jeffrey, if you're still here, I hope that's, that's provided you with the answers to your query at the beginning. And someone's asked what are the most frequent mistakes. Again, the most frequent mistake people make is the failure to read the civil service competencies before doing the test. And also, what are the qualities of the civil service? Again, that's a list of all the competencies that civil service look for. So those are the competencies. So I hope, you've been provided with as much information as possible and you feel equipped and empowered to start your test. And just want to wish you all the best. Again, if you have any questions between now and when you start your test, do let me know. Send us an email at campus@elevationnetworks.org. And if you'd also like to go through any final questions, final practice or coaching session with us, please ensure to, again, send us an email to book your one-to-one telephone coaching sessions by emailing campus@elevationnetworks.org. So I want to say thanks again for your time, wishing you all the best and enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye for now.